Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my wife expects me to buy our kids Starbucks every day. My wife and I adopted Mila, who's 10, Grace, who's 5, and Lucas, who's 4, from foster care. Grace and Lucas were in a very loving home that would have adopted them if they could. We're still in contact with their foster parents and see them every few months. Mila's home was horrible. She was the first one that came to us, and we spent nearly a month in the hospital, and she needed a feeding tube when she came home. Mila has some special needs that are a direct result of that home. A few months ago, we got a call asking if we could take a 14-year-old, Cassie, from the same home that Mila was in. Cassie's needs aren't as severe as Mila's, but between that and the fact that she's years behind in school, normal schooling would have been difficult for her. My sister was a teaching assistant for special ed at our local school district. It was so bad that she didn't even last a year there. When she heard about the girls, she said to not let them end up in special ed in our district. My wife quit her job and homeschooled Mila for the first few months, but she's not a teacher and she doesn't know how to help Mila the way she needed it. We started looking for special needs schools and found one over an hour away that we love. My wife got a job in the office there, so we got cheap tuition for Mila and eventually Cassie when she started school there. The girls are doing great at this school and we're considering moving closer to it to make life easier. The issue is my wife, Mila, and Cassie are out of the house by 6:30 every morning. Cassie is up at 5:30 and Mila is up at 6. They're all tired when it's time to go to school and work, so as a treat, they go to Starbucks every morning. Mila gets a hot chocolate, Cassie is allowed to get a small coffee, and my wife gets a coffee to help them get through the morning. They're not always the best at getting the cups out of the car by the time the younger two see it, and lately they've been throwing a temper tantrum every morning when we pass by a Starbucks. My wife thinks we should just get it for them, but I don't want to. I think it's a waste of money and they can have chocolate milk at home. Am I the jerk for not getting them Starbucks? Why can't your wife, Cassie, and Mila make their coffee and hot chocolate at home and take them in reusable cups? Then the other kids can have the same hot chocolate. Remove overpriced Starbucks from the equation. ETA. There's way too much unnecessary arguing and disrespectful communication happening in this thread. I feel my intentions are being sorely misunderstood and dissimilar comparisons are being made. I'm sorry if what I've said is offensive to anyone. Not the jerk. Kids can't always get what they want. They need to learn this quickly. Also, while I do not know your financial situation, Starbucks is expensive and that can add up quickly between 4 kids. Oh, finally some common sense. Even more if you two buy something. Coffee can be made at home for cheap. Get a few creamers, non-dairy creamers, maybe even an appliance, whipped cream, chocolate, and caramel syrups, and voila. My wife and I were both Starbucks junkies, multiple trips a week, and not the cheap brewed stuff usually. For Christmas 2 years ago, my wife gave me some very fancy coffee making equipment. We immediately bought an entire selection of flavored syrups, chocolate, and white chocolate sauce and caramel. I've bought 2 cups of Starbucks since. It's an expensive one-time outlay. We put about $2,000 into the coffee bar at home. But at 3 cups a day, 5 days a week, and an average of $4 a cup, do the math. That's $3,100 a year in coffee. The setup would pay for itself in a year or so. In my opinion, no jerks here. What's with all these people suddenly freaking out about sugar when it's a hot chocolate and a small coffee after you've woken up at 5 a.m.? Just tell the youngest kids they can have Starbucks when they're older or when they take part in the early morning routine. They'll survive. I don't get all of you're a jerk for even looking at Starbucks. Yeah, I also don't understand all these people freaking out over hot chocolate and small coffee. What's wrong with getting them a little treat for waking up at the crack of dawn? It's really not that much sugar or that much caffeine. No, it's just a total waste of money. 5 days a week buying that kind of stuff, what's wrong with people? A lot, Karen, a lot. Am I the jerk for teaching my son to call me dad against his mother's wishes? I hooked up with a woman named Mary that I didn't know at a party in 2016. About a year ago, someone reached out to me and told me she knew Mary and her now 6-year-old son was mine. This person hadn't known my name until meeting another friend of mine, and they figured it out. Apparently, Mary had started dating someone, John, just after we hooked up, then found out she was pregnant. Mary and John got serious, got married, and John adopted my son. After I found out, I got a lawyer and filed for custody in my state. Mary and John fought me through the whole process, telling me not to break up their family. They have a younger daughter together. After lots of legal fees, I finally forced a paternity test and got every other weekend. My intent is to keep pushing until I have 50-50 custody. I looked into reversing the adoption, but it's basically impossible, so I'll probably have to wait until my son is 18. I've been having my son over for the past few months, and it's been great. He gets along great with my girlfriend, too. He understands that I'm his father, but of course he calls John Dad. I'm not trying to get him to stop that because I don't want to confuse him or make him uneasy. But last weekend, I did tell him that he can call me Dad too, instead of Mr. Last Name, like his mom told him to. He seemed fine with it and called me Dad while he was with me. His mom found out and has been pestering me all week, saying that I'm just a donor and John is his real dad and she'll take me to court for parental alienation. The last thing she said was that I can be an uncle, but my son only has one dad. I'm ignoring most of what she said, but I'm wondering if I am the jerk for asking my son to call me Dad in this situation. Edit. Some people are asking how I could gain parental rights adoption. It is possible because I did not consent to the adoption, and Mary claimed she did not know the father. The birth certificate was blank for father. John decided to adopt when my son was 1 year old and he got married to Mary. She's going to take you to court for parental alienation? Oh, I'd love to see that one. Your Honor, this man that I hooked up with, the donor for my baby, I never told him and lied about knowing who he was so that I could have my new husband adopt him. I then fought tooth and nail to keep them from ever meeting and getting to know each other. This man actually told his son that he could call him Dad, causing our son to be alienated from his adoptive father. In case my opinion is not clear, you're not the jerk and there's no reason this kid can't have two dads. Not the jerk. And it's great that you clearly want to be a parent to your kid that you just found out about. I do kind of hope you've spoken with a child therapist to make sure you're handling this as best you can to help your kid understand what's happening and get him help if he needs some help processing everything. And you could always approach other terms for dad, like pop, daddy-o, or something else, and see what else you can come up with and what he's comfortable with. Plenty of kids have two dads, and I hope you can all find peace. The more love a kid has, the better. You're the jerk. The kid is 6, and you've done nothing ever to be a dad to him until now. The kid has a stable life with his mother and adoptive father. That's his home. That's the only life he's ever known. Wanting to suddenly have 50-50 custody to uproot his stability is not in his best interests. It's selfish. You want this for you, not for your kid. The kid barely knows you, you're not family to him, and to tear him away 50% of the time from the only family he's ever known is gross. OP is this kid's dad, and it's through no fault of his own that he's had no contact until now. That's on the mother. How can you say it's not in the kid's best interest to have his biological dad who wants to be a loving and caring parent in his life? That's crazy. Kids can adapt to having additional family members who care for them and love them. My boyfriend didn't propose to me in the agreed upon time, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm considering leaving him. It's been over 8 years. We started dating at 18 in college. I understood that we would have to wait to get engaged because we were so young. However, I feel that it's been too long. He says we're almost at the finish line, but I keep seeing that line being pushed further and further back. First, we said we would wait until we were financially stable. Then he wanted to go into law school after 2 years of being out of college. We always said we would be engaged when law school was over, but then the bar exam came and sidetracked that. We recently moved, and now we're waiting to see how much our old apartment charges us for damages. My deadline was the day after he graduated. I've already been waiting an extra 3 years because he chose to go to law school. We have enough money in our bank account. I get that he wants to be extremely financially stable, but it's September and I'm breaking. Every time I talk to him about it, it gets pushed further back. He says we're 2 months away, but I ran out of patience 4 months ago. It's driving me crazy, and I feel like it's ruined the idea of being engaged for me. I wanted it to be spontaneous and out of love, but I don't think that was ever actually going to happen. I don't think he's scared of marriage. He offers to marry me at a courthouse all the time. I just think he doesn't care about all of the romantic stuff, and he's just going through the motions for me. I've been pushed 4 months past my breaking point, and I don't know if I've ruined our relationship by pushing the issue. Right now, it's to the point where getting engaged will no longer make me happy. Is it over? Am I just fooling myself? Have I gone mad? Edit. I just want to say that I have never given him a deadline. The deadline was for me to leave. It was in my head. Edit 2. I can't believe I need to say this, but we have talked about a timeline for marriage a ton. We had an agreement. It wasn't set in stone, but it was discussed. No, I can't propose to him. Partly because it's not what we both want, but mostly because we share a bank account. That amount of money needs to be mutually agreed upon before it's spent. Every deadline I set for myself, that I didn't follow through on admittedly, was based on timelines he set. He agreed to get engaged after his graduation. He agreed to this before he started law school. Time passes and things change. I was understanding. Then he said it would happen by the end of summer. Now it's the end of September and he's saying by February. This is the last time I wait. He has some reasonable points, but if it's moved again, that's it. Update. I talked to him about it. He said he was planning on proposing in the very near future. He said we have a few expenses coming up, car, apartment, etc., and he wanted to wait and see before buying a ring. I'm skeptical but hopeful. I asked him when he would propose naturally. He said February because you just can't force somebody to propose and get married to you. I just don't get it. Huh. Based on what you've written, I can't tell if you guys are just not communicating well or understanding each other, or if he's just stringing you along. If you get the idea he's stringing you along, then absolutely leave. But if not, communication issues can be resolved. The one thing I'm side-eyeing, though, is not getting engaged. Getting engaged doesn't cost money. People have long engagements all the time. He could propose now, and you could plan the wedding for a year or more from now, unless you're expecting an insanely expensive ring. You want an official engagement, most likely something cute and romantic, along with the wedding including your friends and family. He says he'll just marry you at the courthouse. Being married isn't the issue perhaps, but rather what you two think should lead up to that. He seems to dread that aspect and would rather skip it all. You said in your comment that you're the breadwinner so far, and you've been supporting him, so the issue isn't necessarily financial on his end, but maybe he wants to be more established. You should talk to him about the whole ceremony aspect, because that seems to be the stone in the road. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. It has to be a mutual thing. You can't force somebody to propose to you or marry you. It just has to be a mutual thing. Yeah, it really sucks when someone keeps trying to pressure you to marry them. What sucks even more is when you break up and they keep threatening you for stuff that you paid for, that they're demanding. Why do some people suck so much? Yowza, Reddit boy. You sound like you might need a smoothie. Wife complains I don't clean while I cook, so I proceed to sparkle the kitchen instead of making dinner. I, 33 male, often do the cooking at home, including the washing up that happens after. My wife, who's 34, does not usually cook. We established that by our second date years ago. I love her to bits, but she is a culinary disaster, and time and sweat has failed to make improvements. It's a lost battle. The sequence of dinner prep usually starts as soon as I finish work. This involves chopping meat and vegetables and rounding up anything that was previously marinated or thawed. This is immediately followed by cooking and then serving to be eaten hot. It seems logical to me that meals should be enjoyed while they are fresh, and cleaning up can wait, especially if the kitchen's not being used by anyone else. I'm also the only one who normally does the washing after everything is eaten, and I wash all the cutlery and cooking prep stuff in the same process. This is done while my wife settles our toddler into bed. I prefer this setup because I can get all the washing done in one go, and everyone can eat their meals at the same time together while it's fresh. I do not like washing the pots and pans after cooking and before eating. My wife, however, seems to get annoyed at this. Every now and then, while I'm cooking, if she walks in, she'll start complaining, making notes that I should pack this and that up, that I should clean the board while waiting for the stir-fry to finish. Sometimes there's literally no downtime for certain dishes, especially with several to serve before it gets too late for the toddler. To be clear, I certainly clean some things as I go, especially when it concerns raw meat or things that need to go back into the fridge. I'll wipe down if there's any offensive spills, but for things like chopping boards, certain empty packages or condiments, I'll leave them out on the bench until I'm done or when I'm washing up. Things that I feel don't pose risks or have any urgency to be put away other than making the kitchen look tidy during cooking. Happy to be proven wrong. Anyway, one day, for whatever reason, my wife got real snarky at me because I left the chopping board out next to the pans, saying it's not hard to clean as I cook. Whatever, fine. So for the next meal, I made sure to clean everything I touched as I started my meal prep. I had already made sure the little one had her dinner, so there's no harm in drawing this out. Need to open that can of pasta sauce? Better wash down the can opener and dry it before we start. Gotta wipe down the whole kitchen top too. Oops, dropped a garlic clove. I'd better give the whole kitchen floor a good scrub. Is that a bit of charred residue on the stove? Okay, better degrease the entire area. You get my drift. Wife has put the little one to sleep by now, so 3 hours later the kitchen is sparkling, literally. Pasta has not entered water and the sauce materials have not touched the pan. Wife asks, where's dinner? I tell her I haven't started cooking because I still need to clean the fridge. There were some stains under the tomato tray. She went back to bed. I still cooked and packed her lunch. I have not been harassed since. Edit. There's no expectation for my wife to clean. I've made it clear that I'm happy to do it as I clean up messes I make. We split our duties, so she spends that time on other things that need attention around the house. There's two types of people in this world. Those who clean the pots and pans as they're cooking, and those who wait after they eat to do it. Well, actually, I kind of do half and half. Like, I clean half the stuff as I'm cooking and when I finish, and then I wait for the bigger things until after I eat. Well, you're just weird. Would I be the jerk for suing my sister over something that her daughter did? I, female 43, have a daughter who's 16. My sister, who's 40, has a daughter who's 15, and always had the idea of having both our daughters be the best of friends. She would only schedule playdates with my daughter and not any of her daughter's school friends. It kept going on, and her daughter began to resent mine. She would start off by stealing things here and there, and went on by lying about her. My sister coddled her daughter her entire life and had one of those weird relationships with her like the ones on TV. She had a real-life brat as her daughter, but everyone in our extended family would brush it off as fiery personality. Now on to what happened yesterday. My daughter won a school raffle and got the grand prize, which was a MacBook. My daughter got praise from nearly everyone. Everyone except my sister, who I didn't mind about. On my dad's 78th birthday, I sent out invitations to everyone and said gifts were optional as I had already bought him quite a lot of gifts. My sister and her daughter show up with this juice maker and some fruits, and they rush to my kitchen. While everyone was getting settled in, my daughter yells from her bedroom. I got scared and ran upstairs to see what was going on, and I saw my niece with her juice maker and my daughter's laptop covered in a smoothie. I yelled for my sister to come upstairs, and she just comes out of the bathroom next to my daughter's room. She said it's no big deal and that computers were probably waterproof. It isn't. I said, what was that smoothie doing out of the kitchen? And why didn't my sister use the downstairs bathroom since upstairs is off limits? I told her that she would be paying for the repairs, but she just brushed it off and said it was fine and family doesn't work like that. She headed downstairs, but I called the police and her daughter got kicked out. The rest of the party was awkward and tense. Later on, I got texts from everyone that saw what happened asking for me to just drop it. Some even called me entitled. I was thinking on serving her with court papers. Would I be the jerk? Update. It was intentional. While I was away, I took the computer to a repair shop. I asked if they could fix the water damage. They said yes, but it's not easy. While they were trying to fix the computer, they opened the back and saw there were multiple punctures in the wires and other delicate parts. I've decided to file a lawsuit. What the extended family thinks of me is irrelevant because my sister allowed her daughter to destroy it on purpose. I'm getting in touch with a lawyer. Not the jerk to expect sister and niece to pay for damages. Go no contact until they do, and even after, go low contact. Who the heck brings a juicer upstairs and sets it on a brand new computer? This was absolutely planned and done deliberately to stick it to your daughter. Your sister's excuses are laughable. Definitely take her to small claims court to pay for the cleaning and any repairs to refurbish the computer. Not the jerk. You'll have my job? Okay, Karen, this will be interesting. So I'm out shopping for a few things. Bread, milk, bin bags, etc. I remember that I need some ham, so I go to the cooked meats aisle and look for something tempting. As I'm searching for something nice, I hear a voice behind me saying, "Excuse me," in a not at all polite manner. I look over my shoulder and see the local Karen. I acknowledge her and take 2 steps to the side, but don't turn around. I feel a tap on my shoulder and the same non-too-polite voice saying, "Excuse me, I'm talking to you. Don't ignore me." I turn around and open my mouth to ask what she wants and why she's being rude. But before I can speak, she starts going off on me for being a lazy member of staff and ignoring her. I say, "If you think I work here, you're wrong. I don't." And she says, "You're just being lazy. I'll have your job." "Really?" I say, badly feigning surprise. "You'll have my job?" "Yes, I will," she says, with a strange mixture of superiority, righteousness, and stupidity. "Okay, suit yourself. You can have it." I waved my hands around in strange shapes and announced, "You are now officially a member of staff." It is said that a picture can speak 1,000 words, but the look on her face at this point just said, "What the heck?" "But I want you to get these things for me. I want," she starts. "Don't ask me. I'm a customer. You should ask a colleague since you work here. In fact, you can help me with what I need." "What? But I don't work here," she says. "Yes, you do. You said you'd have my job and I gave it to you. Now buzz off and leave me alone." She stomps off, but that wasn't the end of it. Another customer, who's clearly seen the interaction, stopped her halfway up the aisle and said, loudly enough for me to hear, "Oh, finally someone who works here. Can you get that heavy thing off the top shelf?" "Oh, buzz off," she said, and walked presumably out of the shop. Other customer, you absolute legend. Entitled sister thinks she deserves my house because she has 3 kids. So my grandfather was a pretty wealthy man, and because of it, he and my mother had a rocky relationship and haven't spoken in over 5 years. My 2 sisters turned out just like my mother, a high sense of entitlement. Believe the world owes them everything, and my grandfather's money didn't help this. They expected my grandfather to pay for a lavish lifestyle. Eventually, he ended up cutting them off, which caused them to stop speaking to him. They even tried pressuring me to do the same. I refused. Me and my grandfather were really close. I spent a lot of time at the house. It was one of my favorite places in the world, and I am absolutely thrilled he left it to me. My grandfather was my best friend. He was the first person I came out to when I was 15, and his reaction is still my favorite. But he sadly passed away a few months ago. This wasn't a surprise by any means, as he had been battling cancer for years. Well, my grandfather ended up leaving everything to me and 2 of my cousins he was also close with. I got the family home, which is a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house with a pool and a hot tub. I was also left a good chunk of money, which will really help with student loans. One cousin got my grandfather's antique car collection. Not sure if it can really be called a collection, as there are only 3, but my grandfather called it that, so that's what I'm going with. The other cousin got my grandfather's painting collection, which was pretty big and has a few pretty expensive paintings in it. But seeing as she is an artist herself, I doubt she will sell them. I think she actually wants to donate a few of the more well-known ones to our local museum. My mother and sisters got nothing. Well, as you can likely guess, they freaked out. There wasn't much they could do about my cousin, as they didn't really speak to my family for other reasons. But with me, they flipped out. My mom was mad because this was her family home, and she thinks she deserves it. My sister thinks I should give it to her because she's married and has 3 kids, and she needs it more. She already has a nice house, by the way. This one is just more expensive. I do not want to give the house to her. My grandfather wanted me to have it. That's gotta mean something, right? And just because I do not have a family right now doesn't mean I won't in the future. Me and my boyfriend have even talked about it multiple times. Like I said, this place means a lot to me, and I want to keep it. My other sister has no interest in the house. She just wants some of the money I got. She recently got out of prison and is pretty much broke. I wouldn't have had a problem giving her some of the money if it weren't for the fact that before going to prison, she stole a lot of money from me and many other family members, including my grandfather. I'd think about getting some sort of a restraining order against them. Never underestimate the power of a Karen. Am I the jerk for not letting my niece use her iPad during our wedding? My wife and I got married September 4th, and this drama is still going on. We paid a lot of money for a videographer to capture our ceremony. We told everyone at the rehearsal dinner we would be having everyone turn their devices off for the ceremony just so that there wouldn't be any distractions. My brother pulled me aside later on to tell me that his daughter, who's 4, would need to have her iPad to get through the ceremony. Otherwise, she would be really noisy and wouldn't sit still and might ruin the day for us. I told him no, she wouldn't be using it because there's a chance she may turn the volume on or something, and I really don't want to take that risk. I thought that was the end of it, but the next day, my brother, who is also my best man, came to me and said that his daughter was having a hard time today and that she would need her iPad. I again told him no. He said that if she didn't have it, she would make a fuss, and the missus wouldn't want that ruining her big day, now would she? And that kind of upset me, because yeah, it's her day, but it's also mine. I'm marrying the woman I love, and we both made this no devices decision together. I told him if he couldn't respect it, then his daughter could wait outside with either him or his wife, but her iPad wouldn't be in there. He was annoyed, but we left it at that. And then it happens. Middle of the ceremony, we hear, "We finally found the perfect house!" And then some fumbling as my sister-in-law is trying to get the iPad to shut off, and my niece starts to whine. Some ad started playing as my niece was playing a game. My wife and I were annoyed, but we, along with everyone else, laughed it off and continued on. During the reception, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law ran up to us, saying they didn't know the volume was up so loud, and they had my niece apologize for it. My wife said it's done and over with, and it was rude of you to do. My bro said it wasn't fair, so I said that it wasn't fair sister-in-law allowed it, seeing as we already talked about it, and that going against what we had already asked of them and the iPad was a major jerk move, and that them not apologizing but having their daughter make a big show of doing so was sending the wrong message, seeing as she's 4 and she doesn't even understand, and that it was them who allowed it to happen. My brother said that it wasn't that deep and that I'm being ridiculous. Then the rest of the reception was kind of awkward, even during the best man speech. He tried to make a joke. "Yeah, that was my daughter's iPad making the noise. She likes to be a rule breaker." And it just made my wife and I angry. I've said very few things to him since this happened. My parents are starting to think I'm the jerk for not just moving on and for waiting for him to apologize. Am I the jerk? Edit. I keep seeing this come up about how if we didn't want this to happen, then we should have had a child-free wedding. We essentially did in the fact that we told everyone, hey, people will be drinking, so if you want to leave your kids at home, that's fine with us. And most people did. My niece came and 4 other kids, one being only 7 months old, and then a 5, a 7, and a 12-year-old. It also helps that naturally, both sides of the family are late-night partiers, so to leave the kids home wasn't a huge offense. And for those asking what we would have done had she instead started fussing and crying, that's fine with us. We would have rather had that instead of a 30-second YouTube ad going on and on, then an awkward scramble to get it turned off, which threw off the flow of our vows. If she started fussing, that's something we could have laughed about, and her mom would have taken her outside. Instead, we had all the guests turning to look at them in a very awkward display of, you were asked to do one thing. And yes, we still laughed, but for us, it wasn't the same. It really wasn't. As for offering up other solutions for my brother and sister-in-law to use to entertain their daughter, respectfully, that's not my job. I'm not her parent. We told them no devices. We had several options, as people have mentioned, and we are not her parents, so it wasn't on us to offer up alternative suggestions, seeing as we were a little more preoccupied with getting everything in order to be married. Maybe I shouldn't be so bothered by this, but I am, because it was the lack of courtesy and apology on my brother and sister-in-law's behalf. My niece apologizing doesn't really mean anything because she doesn't understand what she did. Her mom handed her the iPad. My niece is 4 and doesn't understand that what happened was rude. She doesn't grasp that yet. It should have been on my brother and sister-in-law to apologize. Am I the jerk for calling my brother-in-law lazy in front of everyone? Last weekend, I invited my husband's 2 brothers and their wives to stay over the weekend and have a birthday party for my husband. My husband's youngest brother arrived on Friday night with his wife and stayed in our guest bedroom, while the eldest brother offered to smoke some pork overnight and bring it to the party. The poor guy was up all night cooking it, and I told him I didn't want him to lose out on his sleep over it, but he insisted. So, on Saturday, I get up early and I'm cooking and baking all day, and my husband, his brother's wives, and his eldest brother are all helping out. Everyone is busting their tails, except the youngest. He's sitting down in the living room playing video games for hours without a single offer to help. Even the few times I hinted to him that I needed help, he came up with some BS excuse why he wasn't going to be able to help out. Fast forward to the party. Everything came out great. All the food was good and everyone was enjoying themselves. And the jerk brother makes a joke about my cooking to everyone at the party. At this point, I had had enough of him, so I told him, "You're one to talk. Everyone helped with the cooking and to put this party together, except for you. You're a lazy and entitled parasite." Now, I know that my retort wasn't the most diplomatic and that I shouldn't have embarrassed him in front of everyone. And my husband got mad at me and said that I was a jerk for calling him out in front of everyone and that I needed to apologize to his brother. I told him I don't owe him an apology at all. Am I the jerk? I feel like one after the fact. I know I should have kept my mouth shut, but I still don't think I should apologize to him. Edit. For those who say that I shouldn't have expected people to help out, I will add that it's an unwritten family rule that when a family member invites others for a dinner or a party, everyone is expected to contribute, either by helping out or bringing a dish. It's always been like that for as long as my husband can remember, and I've adapted to their custom. Edit 2. My brother-in-law always never contributes. Not just at family gatherings, but with anything. My husband's family is very close-knit. Actually, everyone is awesome but him, and they're always helping each other out. He only asks for help, but never helps anyone. In my husband's own words, he always finds a way to worm himself out of helping. Edit 3. My brother-in-law said in front of everyone that my food tasted like prison food. For those wondering if in fact the food tasted bad, it didn't. It tasted delicious. Everyone was complimenting it, and some requested the recipes for some of the dishes, which is what prompted him to make that unsavory joke. He also didn't have a problem with the food, as he had already had 2 servings and was on his way for his 3rd before insulting it. Edit 4. Everyone, even his wife, started asking him for help, and he would still not help out. I feel bad for his wife because it's not just at gatherings, it's with everything. She does everything around the house, from cooking to fixing stuff that gets broken to doing all the errands, and all he does is play video games and watch TV. He's a complete deadbeat. I don't know how she puts up with it. She's got the patience of a saint. Edit 5. Some commenters suggesting putting away our console. The problem is that he has his own and takes it wherever he goes. This time was no exception. As soon as he got up, he connected his console and started playing. Edit 6. Some people have asked why my husband didn't say anything to my brother-in-law first. He didn't have time. As soon as my brother-in-law insulted my food, I snapped back with my insult. I don't know what happened after that because I was seeing red and left the room and went for a walk to calm myself down. I knew if I stayed, I would say a few more choice words to him and would have made things worse. They may have scolded him, I don't know. By the way, thank you for all of your comments, even those that say I'm the jerk. It's very enlightening to see people's opinion of this situation and to make me aware where I went too far.
I don't think you went too far. If homeboy doesn't want you calling him a parasite, maybe he should stop being one.
Sister copied my 5th grade book report. Evil mama bear lets her get away with it. This happened when I was 13 and in middle school. My sister was 10 and in 5th grade at the time. 3 years earlier, when I was in the 5th grade, I did a book report on a light novel I don't really remember, and I got a B+ on the book report. My dad had a habit of filing all the returned school assignments of myself and my sister, and he cataloged them by day, month, year, and topic. I thought his doing so was a bit overzealous, but I didn't really dwell on it. Fast forward 3 years, and one day I noticed my sister came home from school whining about having to do a boring book report. I told her I did a few of them for school in her grade, and they're really not so hard. Just pick a book, read it, and then write about it. Then I brought up the name of the book I'd done a report on at the time and said it might be a good choice for her as it was an easy novel to read with big fonts printed on the pages. Sis had 2 weeks to do the book report, but I never once saw her reading any book at all during that time, and I repeatedly reminded her. She'd just brush me off and say, "I got this." Then one day, my sister comes home all proud of herself that she got a B on her book report, which was odd to me since she really didn't read anything as far as I'd known. Plus, she didn't really care to apply herself. I knew she had the smarts, just not the drive. So out of curiosity, I picked up the report and started to read it. And to my shock, it was just like the one I'd written 3 years earlier. She didn't even change the title. I was furious and called her out for copying my work. Sister just ran into Mom's arms crying. Me, "She copied my old book report. She doesn't deserve this grade." Mom,
No, she didn't. You are mistaken. My little princess wrote this all by herself. She earned that B.
Me, "Fine then. I'll just talk to Dad when he gets home and we'll see who's right."
Don't you talk back to me, young man. Go to your room.
Me, "With pleasure." This was before I got my Nokia cell phone, so as I was walking to my room, I sneakily grabbed the cordless phone from its charger and called my dad from upstairs. He was upset and agreed to look at his records when he got home. Surprise, surprise, when he opened up the file cabinet that had my elementary schoolwork in it, it looked like it had been gone through. We found the original book report pretty easily. It had been sloppily shoved back into the file and was crudely folded in half. We read the title, and sure enough, it was the same. We came out of the office, and my dad asked to see my sister's book report. Mom stood her ground and said that her little princess didn't do anything, but Dad was adamant. Mom tried to double down, but Dad told her if she was so confident Sister didn't copy my work, then to let him read it. So Mom finally handed him the book report without even looking at him, and Dad proceeded to compare the two. He got no further than reading the titles of both before Sister started bawling and confessing what she had done. Mom came flying to her aid to hug and kiss her, then chastised us for making her cry. Dad said she ripped off my schoolwork, and if the school found out, she'd have her grade revoked and would likely be punished, which made Sister cry harder. Sister tearfully confessed that a few days earlier she went into Dad's office and looked through my old schoolwork files and found the book report. Then she just handwrote her own version of it that was almost identical and put the original back in the cabinet. After confessing, Sister then ran to my dad and latched onto him while crying her eyes out and saying she'd never do it again. I guess my sister's tears made my dad sympathetic because he said that he wouldn't tell the school that she had cheated, but she was still grounded for doing it, and he expected better from her from then on. I was mad, but my dad told me there was no use since Sister had already been graded on the report and no one noticed. This just made Mom give me an evil smirk, like she was saying, "Ha, I win," because she never enforced Sister's groundings while Dad wasn't home. Then Dad took me upstairs and assured me from now on he'd make sure this didn't happen again by keeping better control of his files. Sister didn't get off completely scot-free though. That Sunday, Dad took me out for ice cream and a trip to the mall, but not her. Sister was screaming and begging to come with us, but Dad told her she didn't deserve it for copying my book report. So in essence, it was my grade and not hers, so I'd be getting the ice cream. That made Mom say she'd go out and buy her a tub of whatever ice cream she wanted, but Sister just cried it was not the same and then ran to her room to scream and pout. That was the best ice cream I'd gotten all year. The following week, my dad got some brand new file cabinets with better locks on them, so nobody could get into them anymore but him. And for those who may be wondering why the teacher didn't notice the book report was the same, my old teacher I had back in 5th grade moved on to another school by the time I was in 6th grade. And since it was elementary, it wouldn't surprise me if copied book reports slipped through the cracks there on many occasions. There are a lot of students to keep track of after all.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.